It was the bloodiest war in our history. It split us apart as enemies, but brought us together as a nation. The Civil War was about slavery, yes, but the causes were more complex than that. It was also about states' rights and freedom, and whether the vast United States would split into two countries or more. And if so, which would survive as a strong trading partner with Europe? One month after Lincoln was elected, South Carolina seceded from the Union, followed by the other states that would form the Confederacy under President Jefferson Davis. The North and the South were poised for war, and the bombardment of Fort Sumter was the beginning of it. Young men rushed to sign up. They were ready to fight, for or against slavery, for their rights, to seek adventure. They were after fun or thrills or glory in a war that was supposed to be over quickly.
I think that soldiering will agree with me, and if I don't get killed, I think I shall fed up on it. We have hard fare but healthy food, pork, break hard crackers, and coffee.
The sun shines out bright and the birds sing sweetly, and everything looks so harmless and quiet that it don't seem we was a hostile land ready to deal destruction on any human creature.
Those young men could not know then that after 1, and then 2, and then 3, and 4 blood-soaked years, the ones who survived would reach a point where they wouldn't care who won or lost. They just wanted the war to be over. Obscure towns and crossroads were about to take their place in history. Harper's Ferry, Manassas Junction, Shiloh. Those eager young men were soon to learn that there is little glory or glamour in war, and their words would speak more eloquently than scholars or history books.
I've seen my first real battle, and I hope it's the last. I never want to see men die in heaps as I did on Sunday.
There were between 5,000 and 10,000 killed. With all this, an intolerable stench. Dead horses, sheep, that and Yankees.
April 1861. In the wake of Fort Sumter, both sides rushed to prepare for war. As in all wars, there were lighter moments.
I lost my pocketbook into the river while I was helping get a horse out of the river. I had a $20 gold piece in it, which helped to make it sink. But I am thankful that I got off as we did.
We have whiskey to drink when we pay 5 cents for it. Look here, please go see Miss Sarah for me and kiss her for me and say, "Oh, how good I love you." She's Bob's choice now. I believe I'm ahead of him.
The battle now rages, and I turn sick at heart as the terrible sound tells me how brethren are slaughtering brethren.
The Confederate Army was holding its own, or winning. President Lincoln needed victories. Confederate forces attacked but lost to Grant at Shiloh. Stonewall Jackson drove Union forces back across the Potomac, where they regrouped to defend Washington. For the first time in history, railroads were a major factor in moving troops and supplies. The Monitor and the Merrimac fought the first naval engagement between ironclad ships. It was a draw. People were beginning to see that this could be a long and bloody war.
We could not chase them far, as some of our men had nearly shoed to their feet. The soles of mine are entirely gone, and the bottom of my feet are bare. We have been on half rations since the 1st of July.
Antietam and Shiloh were the bloodiest days of the war in 1862, but worse was to come.
Our men and Secesh lay as they fell, many begging us for a drink of water, others telling us not to tread on them, and it was difficult to march over the ground without stepping on some man. The dead lay in rows as they fell.
But not all thoughts were on the horrors of war.
I was very glad to find you enjoyed yourself so well at the camp meeting, but it made me feel a little jealous for you to talk about catching bows. I don't want you to fall in love with any person besides myself.
The messages of young love were mixed with the realities of war.
The stench is getting horrible. For all this great slaughter, I cannot learn that we have gained any considerable advantage.
On New Year's Day, 1863, Lincoln, confident of widespread support, issued the Emancipation Proclamation. The slaves were freed, and soldiers, true to form, wrote about the war, and women, and food.
If there, I could take you in my lap, put my arms around you, and whisper while kissing you, how dear you were to me, that you were my sweet little darling, my only hope of happiness in this world.
This country beats the world for goober peas and women. You can find a log hut in every pine thicket with 2 or 3 women in it.
Whoever controlled Vicksburg and the Mississippi River would determine the outcome of the war. General U.S. Grant had tried and failed 2 times to take the city, so he ordered a siege to cut off all supplies and begin a merciless artillery barrage. People sought shelter in caves. They fought disease and foul weather. Food ran out. Flour cost $1,000 a barrel, but it didn't matter. There wasn't any flour. People found mule meat tasty, but stringy. July 4th, 1863. Vicksburg was a brilliant military victory for Grant. The Union now controlled the Mississippi River. The Confederate Army had been split in 2.
The Rebs looked like the latter end of hard times. Some of them had no coats nor shoes. They came among our boys begging for something to eat, and they looked so poor I could not help giving them my ration, even if they was my enemy.
During lulls in the battle, soldiers passed the time gambling. They'd bet on most anything, even how many lice they could take off their bodies. With a victory at Vicksburg, the stage was set for the eventual demise of the Confederacy. Gettysburg proved to be the largest and most devastating battle in American history.
July 3rd, our forces had fought the enemy several days successfully and had driven them many miles, capturing about 9,000 prisoners. On that day, they occupied an entrenched position on the mountains between Gettysburg and Balto and near the former. It was undoubtedly the strongest position that's been assaulted during this war. And we were repulsed in a most desperate attempt to capture it with tremendous loss. Our division was annihilated. It was undoubtedly the severest battle of the war, and I truly feel thankful that I am still spared. Can it be that the guardian spirits of my sainted mother and sister watch over me and protect me? The gallantry of our division was complimented by Generals Lee and Longstreet. They say we never fought better.
Pickett's charge covered half a mile of open ground against the center of a well-entrenched Union position.
They outnumbered us 4-1 and fell short. The day was lost. It looked rough for the center. For 2 miles, we could see the long, unbroken line moving rapidly forward.
Our lines then charged 3/4 of a mile of open country. And there were but few left to reach the enemy's works. And we were so weak that although the enemy broke, we could not hold him.
Pickett's charge was glorious. It was heroic. It was a failure.
The rebel batteries opened fire on their own men when they saw them giving themselves up. The slaughter was terrible. I was covered with blood, some of it dashing hot in my face.
The Confederacy realized they could never become an independent nation. They were losing more lives than they could replace. But they kept fighting.
Sunday morning we went to work and built breastworks of logs and rails and fought behind them all day. We never done much shooting as we did there. We commenced about 6 in the morning and never ceased till after 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We fired 150 rounds of ammunition apiece.
The armies were moving so fast, food and supplies could not catch up. Sherman alone needed 14,000 tons of supplies per day to sustain his army.
During the day I went foraging. I got lost, but returned to the regiment at night with a bucket of honey, 2 hams, and cornmeal. Had a good supper.
Writing paper was hard to come by. Soldiers would fill the page one direction, then turn it and write the other direction. These cross-hatched letters may have been hard to read, but they were treasured. Blockades and transportation problems caused severe shortages of food and supplies for the South. Starving soldiers were deserting to join the other side. They figured at least they would be fed. Others weren't so lucky.
Today I saw a man shot in cold blood. He saw his coffin grave and heard his funeral march, and he seated himself on the coffin and was shot by 9 men. This man was guilty of the deeds he had done and deserved what he had received.
The end of the war was near.
Tell Willie that I saw a little boy the other day, about his size, and I asked him where his father was, and he said he was down in Atlanta, killing Yankees.
(1865).
The roads and fields are utterly strewn with overcoats, blankets, and things that our soldiers have thrown away to march easier.
I am still of the opinion that we can't gain our independence without our armies being greatly reinforced. General Robert E. Lee sent an order around to all the regiments yesterday to know their sentiments in regard to taking slaves in the Army as soldiers. Every company in this command voted for putting the Negro in.
But it never happened. Lee surrendered before that vote became known. April 9, 1865, Appomattox Courthouse. General Grant accepted Lee's surrender. The Union was preserved. The cost in human lives was greater than that for all other American wars combined, from the beginning of our history until today. In all the sordid history of war, this war and its terms of surrender were unique. Lincoln's goal from the beginning had been to bring the nation together, not to tear it apart. His brilliant and merciful wish to forgive and not punish was his advice to Generals Grant and Sherman, who in turn implemented that very concept. The vanquished were allowed to retain their dignity and self-respect. No Confederate land was confiscated. Confederate soldiers were allowed to keep their horses and mules and firearms. They would need them to get home, to farm, to resume their lives. The Civil War profoundly changed us as a people and a nation. It ended slavery. It sparked industrial growth and prosperity that are the envy of the world. It confirmed what the Founding Fathers had believed, that individual states can exist in peace and prosper under a federal government. It was over, and the previously common phrase, "the United States are," would change to "the United States is." It told the world who we are and what we stand for as a people and a nation, and that we will never again go to war with each other.
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He has loosed the faithful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on.
You now have an opportunity to experience this tragic period of our history through the letters of those who lived it. Enjoy Navarro College's Pearce collection.